just saying that. Somebody can say that a lot, but it's when you show it. And if there's one person that has shown us that He loves us, it's the Lord. You might be here today, and you might feel like, well, I'm just a low down, sorry scum of the earth. Well, in your own eyes, you might be, but I'm going to tell you about one that loves you. Amen. You might be here today and you might be addicted to some kind of drug or alcohol, and you might think nobody loves me because of what I'm hooked up in. No, you're wrong, friend. Jesus loves you. You say, yeah, but I ain't good enough. It don't matter. He loves you. You say, well, I don't know nothing about the Bible. It don't matter. He still loves you. You might say, well, I got earrings in my ears. Well, I don't like it, but He loves you. Amen. You might say, well, preacher, you just don't understand my past. No, I don't, but He does, and He still loves you. I said, preacher, I've done a lot of people wrong in my life. He still loves you. This is a little chorus, me and Daddy, and I've had some say, preacher, why don't y'all sing that sometime? Well, we do. That's kind of our pick-me-up little chorus every Sunday morning. Helps get my frame of mind right. Daddy come up to me and said, son, that thing just does something for me. I said, well, it does me too. I need to be reminded a lot that not only I know my daddy loves me, used to not think he loved me. When I was a kid, beating the fire out of me, and he'd say, now, I'm doing this because I love you. But I've come to realize he did love me. That's why he done what he done. But it's good to be reminded that the Lord loves us today. We're going to sing this little chorus, and I hope it'll be a blessing to you. Dad, come on up here. It's good to be able to sing this song with my daddy. Amen. Because I got two fathers that loves me. I got a heavenly father and an earthly father. Y'all give a listen. I hope it's a blessing to you. I hope it encourages your heart. Here we go. and see some smiles, because if you really believe it, you're going to smile about it. Amen. Yeah, smile about the fact that Jesus loves you. So we're going to do it again. Smile while you're singing it because it's true. You ready? Let's go. Brother Brand, 18 of 2 Corinthians chapter number 4. Paul says, while we look not. Boy, sometimes it's hard not to look, ain't it? He said there's some things that we don't need to look at, and I think we could all agree with that. There are some things we don't need to look at. One thing I've come to the conclusion, I don't need to look at myself first thing in the morning. And what are you laughing at? Some of y'all don't need to neither. But he says, while we look not. Boy, ain't that a way to start a sermon off? While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. Now, to a carnal mind, that don't make no sense. Right. To a person that don't understand spiritual things, that's Japanese to them. Because if they can't see it, then they don't believe it. And he's saying, don't look at things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. He said, for the things which are seen are temporal. But the things which are not seen are eternal. Amen. Wow! I want to preach a message on this thought using the phrase, the latter part of that verse, but the things which are not seen. And I want to preach on some things not seen in 2015. I was in a study and I thought, well, as I was preparing this message, what are some things that I know we will see and will be seen in 2015? I jotted down 2 or 3 that really blessed my soul in my study, and I said, you know, one of the first things that will be seen in 2015 is we'll see that the blood is still there. You know that? Amen. That's for sure. The blood is still going to be there. It's saved a lot of people. It's eternal. There's still enough blood to save anybody that will trust Christ and save it. You can't wash it off. You can't run it off. You can't wipe it off. And I'm glad the blood that has been applied to our soul for our sin is still there. It ain't never going to go away. This year in 2015, you will see that the blood is still there. Number 2, I thought of another thing in 2015 that'll be seen, and that is you'll find out that not only the blood is still there, but you'll see that the Bible is still true. Yeah, the Bible is still true. In 2015, there's a lot of people that would like to change it and make it sound a little different or say that it don't mean this and it don't mean that. I'm glad the psalmist put in Psalms 119:89, forever, O Lord, thy word is settled in heaven. I'm glad we'll find his word to be true in 2015. Think about Romans 8:28, for we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them that are the called according to his purpose. I'm glad that's still going to be true in 2015. I think about 1 John 4:4, for greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. I'm glad that that is still true. It's going to be true in 2015. I think about John chapter 13 and verse 1, where it says in the last second part of that verse, having loved his own, which were in the world, he loved them until the end. I'm glad he still loves me. Amen. And he says that he does. It's still true. And I'm glad that nothing, Romans 8, chapter number 30, nothing can separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. I'm glad that's still true. Romans 8, chapter number 1, there is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ. I'm glad that's still true. 1 John chapter 2 and number 1, it says that he is the propitiation for our sin, and not for ours only, but the sin of the whole world. I'm glad that's still true, friend. Are you hearing me? The Bible ain't changing. I'm glad you'll find out in 2015 this same book that's been preached for thousands of years has sailed every ocean, crossed every sea, been to the top of every mountain, been to the bottom of the valley, been there when people was dying to offer comfort. He's been there in the most trying times of life. He's been in the foxholes on the battlefield. This thing's been in the jungles of Africa. It's been in the middle of nowhere and been there to offer words of encouragement. You'll find out in this coming year that this blessed old book is still ringing true in the ears of the hearers. Amen.
Yes, sir.
And then I thought some things that we're going to see. We ain't going to just see that the blood is still there. We ain't going to just see that the Bible is still true. But we're also going to see that the believer is still thrilled.
Amen.
I know everybody ain't going to be thrilled. Hey, some this year going to be just as dead as they've always been. You ain't going to get them excited about God or nothing except a ball game or a cheerleading competition or some kind of dancing party or a birthday. You might get them excited about that. But I'm telling you, friend, you're going to find out this year that God's still got some people that gets excited about the things of God and loves to hear the old story that Jesus died for the sins of the world and still loves to hear that God loves His people. He died to save sinners. There's still going to be some people excited about going to heaven one day, knowing your name's written down in the Lamb's Book of Life. You're going to see in 2015, everybody ain't going to be dead and dried up on God. There's still going to be a few that enjoys the blessings of God and still gets happy in the Holy Ghost. Amen. Amen. Some people say, well, now, preacher, I just don't know if that's going to be me or not. Well, it might not be, but I sure hope it is. Because if you're going to heaven, you might as well go ahead and get started down here. You're going to look goofy for the first time when you get there and you don't even know how to shout. Right. I mean, I want to practice up before I get there, don't you? Amen. And I don't want to get to heaven and look goofy. Everybody else knows how to praise God, and I never did it down here because I was too embarrassed. Amen. And somebody might think I'm really saved. Right. And so when you go to heaven, you see the street of gold and the gate of pearl. That's going to be something. But when you see Him for the first time, and you see the throne of God and a rainbow around the throne and a crystal clear river coming from the throne of God, and there's the tree of life bearing 12 manners of fruit. And for the first time in your existence, you ain't got no pain, you ain't got a headache, you ain't got a heartache, you ain't got no worries, you ain't got nothing bothering you, you ain't got to go to a graveyard, no hospitals, no none of that. You ain't got to worry about cancer or heart attack. And you say, preacher, I just don't know if I'm going to get excited in heaven or not. Friend, if you go and you won't be able to help but be excited about it, and you might as well get a good start while you're down here. So they would say, well, preacher, I just don't know if I can do that or not. People think I'm crazy. You're an independent Baptist church. We know you're crazy. Whole lot of truth to that. Your car's in the parking lot. Everybody else knows you're crazy. You might as well start enjoying the things of God. I know there's going to be some people that get cold on God, backslide, get out of church, and go back to the world, but everybody ain't going to. going to see that in 2015. Now, what are some things that we're not going to see? Somebody says, well, what are we not going to see? I'm glad you asked that question. I've got several of them I want to share with you. And I'll try to be as brief as possible and we'll go to the house, all right? Watch this. Number one, the first thing that you will not see in 2015, you will not see, you won't see God forsake the saint. You won't see it. Psalms 37 and verse number 25, it says this, the psalmist said, he never saw the righteous forsaken, nor seed begging bread. Isn't that a wonderful thing to know? That God ain't never going to forsake His people. I mean, that's wonderful. When we look at everything else that's going on in our society today, I mean, thank God gas is coming down a little bit. I mean, everybody's kind of revived, and I never thought I'd see a day where I was excited to pay $2 a gallon for gas. Amen. I mean, we got a lot going on in this world. Friends forsaking friends. Wives forsaking husbands, husbands forsaking wives. You've got whole churches forsaking one another and people going the other way. But there's one that'll never forsake you and I and His God. I'm glad something you'll never have to worry about. He'll be with you all the way, even up to the end of the world. He said, I'll never leave you, nor will I forsake you. I'm glad there's nothing I can go through in this life. There's no valley too deep, no mountain too high that my God can't be there. He's going to be with you every step of the way. Whether it's good, bad, ugly, it don't matter if it's watery or dry in the desert. God's going to be with you every step of the way. You will not see forsake His people. That's good. Absolutely. That's good. You will not do it. You said, preacher, but there's times in my life I feel like I'm all alone. We all do at times. I think sometimes that we get all by ourselves, and I don't know if you are or not, but I have little pity parties. Oh, yeah. And I get to thinking about it in my own little mind, you know, nobody really cares, and nobody wants to be around me. And you get to thinking about there's nobody there for you. Nobody wants to understand how you feel. You feel like sometimes you're there for everybody else. Some of y'all, you feel like you've exhausted yourself this year, trying to be there for everybody under God's heaven. Some of us had family members and you went the extra mile above and beyond, trying to do what was good for them. But yet when you need something, you can't find them with the FBI. Y'all got any family like that? No. Oh yeah, we all got them. Some of y'all have been there and you've struggled along through the year and you feel like now you're forsaken. You feel like you've emptied yourself out and you're like a sponge on the inside. You ain't got nothing left to give. And you feel like nobody cares about where you are and what you're going through. And sometimes you even feel like you're doing it by yourself and nobody else is around to help you. Friend, if you're in that situation, I want to let you know that God, He has not left you and He ain't never going to leave you. Amen. You ain't in this thing by yourself. He's right there with you, friend. That's for sure. Amen. Kind of reminded of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they wouldn't bow to the golden image there in the plain of Dura. Old King Nebuchadnezzar got that 90-foot tall golden image out, set him up in the plain and said, all right, boys, who don't ever bow down at the golden image that I set up, we're going to throw them in the burning fiery furnace. And they went through the crowd and they started playing their music and their instruments, and there was 3 old Hebrew boys, they wouldn't give in. Right. And there they stood, little tattletellers, went and told King Nebuchadnezzar, said, hey, oh king, there's 3 of them 3 Hebrew boys. They will not bow at what time you play the music. They won't get down on their knees. And he said, where are they at? He went down there and he went and had a powwow with them boys. He said, is it so that y'all won't do it? And one of them spoke up and said, absolutely not. We ain't going to do it. He said, and if you throw us in the burning fiery furnace, our God is able to deliver us out of that hand and out of the fire. He said, all right, boys, prove your point. He said, servants, go down yonder and you heat that fire up 10 times hotter than she's ever been heated up before. And get her ready. We're going to toast these 3 Hebrew boys. They think they got something. They're going to stick their nose up at me. He said, I'm going to prove a point and make an example out of him. And everybody from now on is going to bow down and worship that golden image image. They went down there and grabbed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, said, come on boys, we're throwing you in the fire. And the fire was so hot when they opened up the door, the servants that was going to put them in there fell over dead. And they threw them 3 Hebrew boys in the fire, and there was Shadrach, or King Nebuchadnezzar, standing looking over in the furnace, and he says, wait a minute, there's the boys down in there walking around, and he started counting. He said 1, he said 2, he said 3, and there's 4. He said, now wait a minute, let me count them again. He said, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. He said, I know something's got to be wrong with my eyes. So he cleans his eyes out, and he says, I'm going to count it one more time. He says, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. And he said, I ain't believing what I'm seeing, but that 4th one is in the image of the Son of God. Hey, that goes to prove to you that even if you're thrown in the fire, it don't make no difference how hard it gets in your life. You'll find Jesus. Mays Jackson was preaching on that one time in a revival, and a little boy come up to him. He said, Mr. Mays, he said, you've done just like every other preacher's ever done, preaching on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He said, well, son, what did I do? He said, at the end of the sermon, you got Meshach out, you got Shadrach out, and you got Abednego out. He said, but you left Jesus in the fire. He said, what's up with that? He said, son, I'll be back tomorrow night, and I'll have you an answer. He goes home and he studies and he prays and he goes back to church the next night, and that little boy didn't forget. As soon as Mays got out of the car, there was that little boy standing on the front porch of the church before Mays Jackson ever went in. He said, all right, Mr. Jackson, preacher. He said, explain to me why you get Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego out, but you leave Jesus in the fire. He said, son, I figured it out, and God told me why I've never been led to get him out is because I'm expecting to get thrown in the fire today. I want him to already be in the fire before I get thrown in. Aren't you glad he won't forsake you? Even when your life gets heated up, he's right there with you.
Amen. Praise the Lord. Yes. That's good.
Some things you won't see in 2015. You won't see God forsake the saint. There's another thing you won't see. You won't see God fear the storms neither. Amen. Nahum chapter number 1 and verse number 2 says that he hath his way in the whirlwind, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. In Luke chapter number 8 and verse number 23, you'll find out where Jesus was asleep in the hinder part of the ship during one of the greatest storms those disciples had ever experienced on the Sea of Galilee. So much was he asleep, humanly speaking, that they had to go down there and wake him up. The storm didn't even bother him in his sleep. He was in peace because he is peace, friend. And you'll never see our God get afraid of a storm. And some of you in here, you're going to experience some storms this year like you've never experienced. I don't know what some of us are going to go through. Some of you might go through some bad stuff. You might lose a family member. You might lose a child, a husband, a grandma, a grandpa. You might find out you got cancer. You might have a heart attack, a stroke. I don't know what's coming your way, but I do know that man, that woman is a few days and full of trouble. And there's troubles coming your way, but you can rest assured the storms come into your life. And the good shepherd and the captain, he's not afraid of the storm, and you'll never see him get scared. Amen.
That's right. Hallelujah.
Number 3, you won't see God forsake the saint. You won't see God fear the storms, but you will never see God in this year or any year forget the sanctuary. The Bible says in 2 Chronicles 7, verse 12 through 16, that he had chosen that place for himself to be an everlasting dwelling place. That was in the temple that he had built. Now you and I are the temple. You and I that are saved, we are the sanctuary. God dwells inside us. But I want to stop right there and use this as an analogy. Thank God for the sanctuary, the church building that we have to come and worship, where God seems to meet with us. When the choir sings or a specialist sung, God don't have to come down here and meet with you. He don't have to do anything in your heart. It can be dead and dried up around here just like it is in a lot of other places. But ain't Sometimes I go places and you get in churches where I honestly believe they wouldn't know God if they walked in and met Him nose to nose at Walmart. I'd hate to think, and I'm not being critical of other churches because there's some great churches around here and I love the preachers and I'm not throwing no stones, but unto God, I would hate to think I had to go to church and I couldn't meet with Him.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
I'd hate to think I went to church and left there in worse shape than when I come.
Praise the Lord, yes.
I'd hate to think that I went to church and nobody was glad to be there.
Amen.
My wife told me yesterday, we've been on the road this week. We was up in Kentucky. Actually, we was at Brother Brad Tybert's church and him and Miss Jenny. And my wife was coming down the road. And I'm going to tell you what, traveling 8 hours by yourself is one thing. Traveling with 3 women, you find out that His grace is sufficient. I know I've heard a song somebody sung one time, it's worth every mile. I don't know about that. I'm not sure. My wife was telling me yesterday was coming or at the house or somewhere, and when my wife says something spiritual to me, she means it. Because when my wife gets excited, if she raises a hand or if she gets an altar, you can guarantee Jesus just sit right beside her. She's not easily moved. She said, honey, I can't wait to get to church tomorrow and hear you preach.
My.
That set my barley field. I mean, I perked up right quick. You talk about ready to get to church. My wife of nearly 23 years, who is the first lady that probably has not frowned since the day she got married.
Here we go.
Amen.
Here we go.
Yes. And if you believe that, I got some oceanfront property over here on Hoover Hill Road I'd love to sell you. Told me she couldn't wait to get to church and hear her husband preach.
Amen. That's good.
Woo! That was almost as good or better than a piece of fried chicken. Amen. You want me to tell you why? My kids, even too, my daughters, they've been raised up here. They know when God shows up. You want me to tell you why they know when God shows up? Because He showed up here so much.
Amen.
Hey, listen, friend, they know when it's real.
Right.
And they've been around. They know when God is moving around. I remember when Lindsay was a little girl, when we'd come to church, and if God really got, y'all know how it is, sometimes it breaks out around here, and we might snot and walk around crying, hug everybody's neck, and your mascara smears, and your makeup runs, and all that stuff. Lindsay would look for Daddy and try to find me and get in my lap. I remember a lot of that. The move of God that you've experienced. And by the way, kids, you ought to never take it for granted that you've been raised up in a church where the Holy Ghost moved and where He was meeting with His people when your mom and daddy brought you here. Don't ever take it for granted that you got a choir up here that loves singing the songs of Zion, that ministers to your heart. Don't ever take it for granted. You want me to tell you why? Because if you do, this place could end up being some old dead, dried up hole run by a bunch of deacons and Pharisees and old church members that don't love God no more. You better thank God you got a place that come worship, where you got a preacher that loves God and wants to see you experience Him as well. A lot of people say, well, why do you come to church? I don't come to church just to come to church. I come to church to meet with God. And I want to see you meet with God too. Let me give you a fourth one. Something else you won't see in 2015. You won't see God forsake the saint. You won't see God forget the sanctuary. You won't see God fear the storm. But you won't see God fail the sheep. No, He's not going to fail the sheep. I was reminded of a story where he had 99 there in Matthew chapter number 18, verse 12 and 13, where he talked about would he not leave that 99 and go after that one that had gone astray. One part of it in the gospel says that one which was lost. Some people look at that as being a type of the sinner who was found by the shepherd, being that he knows who the sheep are before they ever get in the fold. And that's another story, and I would try to explain it, but that's another day. But I also can look at it as a sheep that was a sheep that went astray and was in the fold. In other words, a child of God who drifted away from the flock and where they needed to be. He was trying to lead you into greener pastures. But out of stubbornness and ignorance, you turn from the shepherd and you go the other way. It's good to know, though, when I do get stubborn in my mind and I try to get away from the fold and I try to go my way, I'm glad I got a shepherd and a looking for me with his rod and with his staff and get me back where I need to be.
Amen. Amen.
And I promise you this year there'll be some of us that'll feel like straying and going away from the flock. It never happens, never ceases to amaze me, but it always happens. You want me to tell you why it happens? Because we're human. And sometimes our flesh and our sinful, stubborn nature gets the best of us. So we start straying. Let me tell you how you know when you're straying. You don't stray all at one time. You'll kind of get away from the flock and then you'll come back. And then you'll get away from the flock and then you'll come back. And then finally you'll just get completely away from the flock. And the more you are away from the flock, the more dangerous you are in. More danger you're in.
Yes.
But I promise you, if you're a real sheep, he's going to come get you. And if you notice, he breaks that sheep's leg so he can't. That's what a shepherd would do a lot of times. He'd take that leg and then he would have to mend it back, keep that sheep where he wouldn't be able to go off no more. He'd stay right by the shepherd. And that shepherd would be able to lead him where he wanted him to go. But you can rest assured this year that he ain't going to fail the sheep. Let me give you this and I'm done. Something else you won't see in 2015, you won't see him flee the sin. It don't matter what kind of issue or situation you get into. I think about the guy that fled Jericho, went down to Jericho, left Jerusalem. And all those that come by and didn't have no hope for him, they walked right by him. The priest and the Levite, they couldn't do a thing for him. But then here comes the Good Samaritan. When that guy fell among thieves, the Good Samaritan bound up his wounds, pouring oil in it, and he took him over there to the inn, and he said, "You take care of him, and I'll be back. And whatever I owe you more when I come, I'll repay you." He said, "But now you take care of him." I'm glad the Lord didn't flee the scene when you and I, or when I was laying there wounded and bruised spiritually, when nobody else could offer me any hope in my own heart. I'm glad he just didn't look down at me and shake his head and say there's no hope for that guy right there.
Amen.
I'm glad he took me to where I needed to be, and he placed me in the inn. And by the way, the inn is a type of the church. He poured in oil and he wound up our wounds and he left us here. And he said, "I'll be back for you and I'm coming again. But until then, take care of these that are hurt and wounded." Let me tell you what's in here this morning. A lot of us in here, we put on a good face when we come to church. But some of us are beat up and bruised on the inside and we're hurting. Some's confused. Some of you's got all kinds of problems you're battling with, whether it's anxiety or whether it's depression or whether it's worry or whether it's doubt or confusion or whatever you're wrestling. And it may be pride. I have no idea what you're wrestling with, but I can guarantee you this, regardless of your wound, he's not going to leave your sin. I'm glad he's there.
Amen.
Amen.
Let's all stand on our feet this morning. Let's see, come on. Miss Sue gets ready to play the piano. Altar's going to be up. If you'd like to come pray, you can come do that. We're going to start the new year off. This is a new year, new Sunday, new time. Maybe you want to rededicate your life. Just a second, Brother Fred. Maybe you want to rededicate your life. Maybe you want to do some business with God. Maybe you've put things off in your life, and this year you're going to take a leap of faith and and you're going to do it right. Maybe you're hurting and you need Him to pour in some oil and want to lounge you up and bind your wounds up. He can do that today. I don't know what your issue is. Maybe you've never been born again. Maybe you've never trusted Christ as your Savior. You've never experienced soul salvation. You've never invited Him to come into your heart and forgive you of your sin. Today could be your day. There's a lot of things you're going to see this coming year. Thank God for the things that we're not going to see. While we look not at the things which are seen, but the things which are not seen. Try your best this year to not look at everything you see. If you look at everything you see all the time, you're going to end up discouraged, I promise you. But try to keep your eyes on what you don't see. The eternal things of God. That's what's going to bring you hope and encouragement, strength for the journey. It's not going to be easy. Life ain't easy. But I promise you He'll be there with you every step of the way. Any more want to come while these are praying? Anybody else? Going home.